Hi, my name is Rob Latour, and I'd like to show you an open source project I put together called CPU Monitor Junior. Basically, it lets you display the CPU performance of your computer, Windows computer, on a small TFT display like this one here. So I'll bring it up closer, although it's not really going to give a great picture. So what I'll do is, there it is, it's monitoring this computer, and in the background this is the CPU being utilized. So let me just bring this up here, which will give you a better picture of it. So here I've got two such devices. I did this recording yesterday, and one's the basement server, and one's it's this computer that I'm using here now. This is a 4-core Windows computer, so it's one CPU with 4 cores. So what it's going to show you is the name of the computer and its internal IP address as well, and you can have that as the external address if you want instead. It'll show you the temperature that the either the average or maximum temperature of all the cores, as well as the amount of memory the computer is using, the time and the date, as well as these bars go up and down, which I'll show you in a second. And this red line is kind of an historical total CPU utilized, trending over time. So here's the same thing on another computer. This is my basement computer. This is my development machine, the one that I'm kind of working on now. And it's got it's a 24 core machine with 48 virtual cores. So it's going to show you the bar graph information and the history for the 48 cores. So here it is, kind of running in real time. So you can see the bars are kind of going up and down, showing you the load and the temperature and the percent of memory being used. And this is the historical kind of trending line of the total CPU being used over time. So that's kind of the end result of all this. So this is all documented on the web page here, and all the source for this is all open source. So I'll show you that in a second. So this is talks about, this is the web page, talks about the project I'm reviewing now. This is a prior version of it, where it version 1 and 1.1, where it showed it on an LCD display, but clearly there's more information in this more current release. And I'll talk to you about the hardware. Here's the hardware. This little machine here is, you can click a link to it, and it'll bring it up here. So this is one that you can get directly from the people that kind of release it. So it's $14 US for one of these, to give you an idea. And I don't get any commission or anything like that, just there's the link for it, if you will. And all the source then is right here on the GitHub page. So I'm recording this, which is a YouTube video coming soon. This YouTube video will go here, and then underneath it, the source you can find here on GitHub. So here's the source on GitHub. How you would get at it is you just click code, download zip, and then it will download the zip file here to your download directory. And so we'll just let that happen. It'll just take a minute. So there, it's done. So now I'll just go down to my download directory here on this computer, and we'll find that it's there, hopefully. Downloads, and there's all the source that you need. So I'm going to cut that, and I'm going to put it on my desktop here in a new folder, and I'm going to paste it in there, so that'll copy it over. So there it is. And then, so this is in a zip file, so I'm going to need to extract it. So that'll take a minute to extract, because it's got a bunch of code in there for sure. And we'll just wait for that to happen. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the two sides. There's a side that gets kind of coded on this ESP32 device, and there's another side that gets coded and run on the Windows side of the computer. And the two are connected via Wi-Fi. So this thing, you can see there's a USB cable running into it okay, but that USB cable is just providing power. So the actual data is flowing between the two via Wi-Fi, and really there isn't, at least I don't notice on either machine, a significant performance hit, or really any performance hit for doing that. So here's that folder now extracted. So what do we have in here? So this is the source for the older version 1.1 of the ESP32 solution. This is the Arduino sketch, the source code for the ESP32 side, and this is where you find the source code and the executables for the Windows side of things. So let me start, and this is if you have a 3D printer, and for the LCD side of things, this is a case that you could print off a case for it. But let's look at I guess the Arduino side first. So here's the Arduino side. I've got this loaded up here. So let me go. So sorry, here's the code. Like, here's the sketch itself. So let me just look at that. Open it up. There's the sketch. So I've documented it as kind of much as I thought I needed to or could to help you read through it. You really don't have to really understand a lot of that at all. You can just kind of run it out of the box if you're so inclined. There are two other files here that are pretty important. One is called user secrets. So we'll take a look at what our user secrets are. And so it's just a little file where this is where you'd put your network. So if your network was called my network, you'd put my network here, your Wi-Fi network, and this would be the password to that. And this is something that's used for over-the-air updates within your own home, if you know what that is. And I won't get into that. You can look that up. And the other file here is this user settings file. And basically, it's all the various settings that you would maybe want to tailor the look of this thing. So it's got colors. You can change the colors of things. Whether you want to show your internal address, how you want the temperature shown, in Fahrenheit or in Celsius, whether you're going to show, anyways, you can go through all this and take a look at it, and you can change these if you want to. There's a reference to an NTP server here, so you can just leave that it is. Just so that you understand how it works is, what it does is when this thing initially kind of boots up, it'll go get the time from the internet, and so it'll be there to display. And if your computer isn't running, or if it's that is to say, if it's powered off, it won't show any of this extra performance data. It'll just show you the time. But once it connects to your computer, now you've turned your computer on, it'll go grab all this information, it'll start displaying it to you, and the time that it'll show you is the time of the computer. So if you have 3 computers you're monitoring, and for one reason one of them has a different time set, it'll pick up and display the time of the computer, not the internet time. Anyways. Here you go. So this is just all loaded into Arduino. So the Arduino IDE, if you don't know what that is, you can Google it. You can figure out how to set it up. It's explained, kind of like a million times. But here's the sketch loaded up into the Arduino IDE. This is version 2, and here are those files that I talked about. And you would just change these as you see fit. Now this number here is probably the one that you want to pay attention to the most. The two devices, the Windows computer and the ESP32, communicate over a particular port number, and that's the port number. So in my example where I had 2 of them going, I had one computer sent to one port number, I think it was 4445, and the other computer set to port 4446, and then the ESP32s were compiled with the sketch code. One of them was 5 and one of them was 6, and so basically you pair this with the computer that you want to run, by using the same port number. And I'll show you on the Windows side in a minute where we set that port number. Okay, so basically that's it for the Arduino side. And so the other thing is in the sketch itself at the top, it tells you what the various Arduino settings need to be. So you're going to use, this is the physical board. This is the board that you're going to choose from the board manager. And these are all the settings that you would set under tools here. These are the values for those. Anyway, so hopefully you're familiar with Arduino, and that won't be much of a learning curve for you. So the other thing that we've downloaded here is the actual source code for the Windows service. So we've downloaded actually the source code for the Windows service, as well as the executable and I've signed this executable file. So you can either use Windows, here's Windows here, Visual Studio, and you can just kind of load that up and compile it if you're familiar with that environment, and save it yourself. Or you can just, if you don't want to do that, just use this executable, which I've digitally signed myself. So and if you compile it, you'll replace that information, but otherwise you can just use this executable here. How you install it is there's a set of batch files here. You have to run these as administrator, and what they'll do is they'll install the service on your Windows computer. Now it's a service, which means you may not know what that means, but it runs in kind of the background of your computer, and you don't have to be logged on. So that means that this thing, let's say you have this thing in your office or something like that, and you have your computer in another room, it's turned on but it's not logged on to, it'll still transmit the data. Okay, so just want to go back into this directory here. So what we're going to do is just going to, could probably just take this whole directory here, this thing, CPU, monitor junior master, and copy it to your C program files directory. Copy that and all its contents in there, and then when you run the install, it'll find it in the appropriate subdirectory here. So you're going to run this, you're going to just click on it and say run as administrator for it to install it, and you can uninstall it by doing the same thing, run as administrator, and you can stop and stop it here, start and stop it here, or you can just go into Windows Services like that. And so I've got two monitors here, so it's on the other monitor. All right, and here it is running here. So you can start and stop it there. You can start, stop it, restart it from there as well. So what we're going to do then also is take a look at this. In here, in this folder, there's a file called engine config. That's what it's called. If you just edit that, okay, this is where it's going to get its settings information from. So there's only really two settings. One is the port number, which I've talked about, and that's the one that needs to match with the port number in the Arduino sketch. And this is the number of milliseconds, so 1,000 milliseconds equals a second, how often the updates get done. So I'm doing mine now at once a second. It'll send an update. You can drop that down to, I think the lowest I've been comfortable with, about 200 milliseconds, and you'll get faster refresh rates if you want. This thing will be able to keep up, no problem. It takes about 35 milliseconds to refresh this screen. So you sending the information every 1,000 milliseconds, that's quite fun. Okay. So there we go. So I think that's what we need to know here. Now the other thing is, out of this box, so let me show you on the web page, getting the computer temperature is actually kind of a bit of a deal on Windows. All the other stuff is fairly readily available, but the temperature is a little bit different. And so to get the temperature, the the Windows side uses one of two solutions. This open hardware monitor solution here, click on that, it'll bring you to their website, and you don't have to download or do anything here. It's all kind of already built in, and the program uses this freely available software as kind of an interface thing. There is a license here. I think that's for if you want to run the anyways, I'll let you read what the license is for, but as far as I know, it's all freely available. The other thing, and you can make a donation here as well if you want. So the other thing is, though, that software doesn't work on all machines. It works just fine right out of the box on my newer development machine here. When it was sending the information, got the temperature, no problem. But on my older kind of test machine, it didn't get the temperature. So if you want the temperature and it's not coming when you first install it, you'll see it'll say NA there, not available, and that may not be great. You may want the temperature on the machine. There's another solution here. It's called CoreTemp. And so what you need to do is you need to download this particular program here, and there's a bit of a setup routine for it. So you just download it and run on the setup file. And let me just close this. And here's CoreTemp here. All right, I'm gonna run it on this machine. So here's CoreTemp running on this particular machine. Now, it gets better. So to have CoreTemp work with our Windows service, we want to do two things. We want to go into Options and Settings and Advanced, and click this option here, Enable Global Shared Memory, and just click OK. And so we want to do that. We want to do that in any case. So the other thing is, if you need CoreTemp to augment the temperature displays on the Windows side of things, then this thing has to be running for you to get it. So the way I've showed you to set it up here is okay, and you can have this, there's an option here, I believe, to start this program when you start Windows. You can have that set, and then so when you log on, it'll start that up for you. However, if you wanted to run as soon as the computer powers up, there's an extra step which I'll just walk you through. I know this is getting a little complicated, but this is about as deep as we're going to get here today. So this is using something called Task Scheduler, and this is a Microsoft part of your operating system. And what you need to do is create a scheduled task to start up. So here it is here for mine. So here, let me just, what I'll do is I'll create a second one. So go Action. Where do we go? Sorry. There we go. So create a task. So we're going to create a task. We're going to give it a name, CPU monitor, CoreTemp. I've already got one here called CoreTemp, I think. Yeah, I call it CoreTemp. I've got it disabled right now, but I'll call this CoreTemp 2 just to give it a name. And I'm going to have it triggered. I'm going to say a new trigger, and I'm going to say I want it to trigger at startup here. So that'll start it when the computer starts. And then I'm going to say OK. OK. And actions, I'm going to have it start. So I need it to start the actual CoreTemp program, start a program. So I've already installed CoreTemp on this particular computer. It's in my C program files directory. There it is there. I'm going to find it. There it is. Find the executable. So that's it. Okay, and then conditions none, settings none. I'm going to go back to general, and I'm going to, there's someplace here that I'm going to say run whether the user is logged on. I don't want that. What I want to do is have it run whether the user is logged on or not. So I'm going to click that, right? And click this to configure for Windows 10, although it doesn't have Windows 11, but there you go. And throw that on, it probably doesn't matter. So when I say run whether the user is logged on or not, I'm going to press OK, and what it's going to do is ask me, that's my user ID. Don't know if I should be showing people that. And I also enter my password, so I'm just going to enter that off screen. Okay, and press OK, and then pressed OK, and then the screen just went away. So that created this CoreTemp 2 task, and basically I'll delete that later, but basically now whenever I start my computer, I don't even have to log on, and even if I do log on later after I log off, it's going to be running that CoreTemp program. So I'll get that one deleted later. So again, on this particular computer that I'm running now, I didn't need that. On the computer that I have running the other one, I did need that. So you don't always need that, and it's kind of a bit of an explanation for sure, but that's how you get that thing working. So basically that's the two sides. That's the kind of ESP32 side, and it's the Windows side. There's one more thing I should probably cover. This device here, let me go here to wherever our video was of it. Bring up our video again. All right. So it has two buttons, a top button and a bottom button, if you will. So the top button, if you press the top button, it'll go into a settings screen. I won't be able to show that to you very effectively here, but basically there'll be a list of all the various settings that you can change. So for example, you can change whether you want the time in military time or 12-hour time. You can decide if you want the seconds shown. You decide if that's going to be in Fahrenheit. You're going to decide. You can actually have just a you can have this displayed in a different way. I'll let you fool around with the settings to see that if you want. But basically this is where you're going to save the settings. Now the settings will be saved in the device's non-volatile memory, which means that when you turn it off and turn it on, it'll remember those settings, which is kind of cool. Also, if you click this, there's a bit of an about button. Just talks about the version of the program, as well as the so this is the IP address of this machine. This is the computer that the Windows computer is connected to. But if you click the about button, it'll show you the IP address of this ESP32, as well as the port that it's connecting on. So I think that's pretty well everything. So let me just go back to the web page here. So here's the write-ups. Here's where you get the source on GitHub. Here's where you can get the kind of this device if you want one of these. All of this kind of still applies to, this is the older model here if you want. So this is where you can get you know, the kind of the hardware you need to put this model together. This one's it's got a real-time clock involved too. In any case, I'd go with this one. Version 2 is much better than version 1.1 at this point. It just gives you more information. It's the hardware side's easier. This involves soldering and putting things together. And so that's about it. So I usually forget to say please like and subscribe. So if you wouldn't mind liking and subscribing, if you made it this far, great. And then if you have any questions, you can email me here. I guess that's it. So I've really enjoyed putting this together, and I hope it will be of use to you. Thanks very much.